Matt McLain has entered the chat and showed that he is willing to step up and do whatever it takes to help the Reds be a winner in 2025.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr, his name is Steve Hoffenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have 12 years combined of experience talking about these Reds on a podcasting basis, and I want to thank you for making us part of your day. We, of course, talk about the Reds every single day, every single week, all year long, all throughout the offseason as we head into spring training for 2025 and eventually opening day for 2025, so make sure you're subscribed to get 30 minutes or more of Reds talk in your feed every single day. And we've got a lot to get to on this podcast because there are some more quotes and a great quote that I love from Terry Francona from this introductory press conference where he was asked about what more does he have to prove. I thought his answer was pretty awesome. We'll talk about that as well as some hitting coaches being let go a little bit later on in the show. Also, there was some unfortunate news on the pitching side of things, which really has us thinking that the Reds need to be focused on keeping that pitching depth up to snuff this offseason. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but we want to start first with the news, and this is being reported from Charlie Goldsmith of the Cincinnati Enquirer, that Matt McLain is ready to do his part, and also some Elly De La Cruz news as well. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Check it out today at Booking.com or on the Booking.com app. All right, Steve, we want to start with this because Charlie Goldsmith, and there was this news dump. I don't know what the Reds were doing on Tuesday, but apparently they were busy because there was a lot of news coming out of Great American Ballpark on Tuesday. And some of the biggest, at least in my estimation, from Charlie Goldsmith was a report that Matt McLain is ready to do his part. If he needs to move to third base, if he needs to move to center field, Matt McLain wants to do that. He is showing his leadership, and he hasn't even played in almost 2 years.
You know, I think this is a smart play. We got a new manager coming in, and we got a guy that hasn't had a big league at bat in over a year. We've got a confluence of events that Matt McLain needs to demonstrate that he's willing to do whatever it takes to be a part of this big league club and be a part of Terry Francona's formula. And you know, Matt McLain brings the unique ability to move around the infield, play multiple positions, and
he's an athlete.
He's the guy that I've been saying all along should have been in the conversation for the outfield. He's a guy that is not new to the outfield. As a matter of fact, he was a college outfielder. He played center field for UCLA. We talked about all this in depth when he was added. I said that.
I think I said I don't know. I never listened.
A lot. Yeah, that's the problem around here, Jeffrey. But Matt McLain is willing to utilize his skill set. Now, this is a change because if you go into the Locked On Reds archives, there's an interview with myself and Matt McLain where before I finish getting the question out about what position he plays, he's telling me he's a shortstop.
Shortstop.
And so this is a marked change from where he was back then. Now, obviously, he was a minor leaguer then, and that was a few years ago. But this is definitely a different song he is singing, and it's a song that would allow the Reds to really field the best version of themselves. We've been talking about the fact, and I talked about this with John Sadak earlier in the week, Jeff, that for the first time, Jonathan India has a positive outs above average in a season. He really stepped it up defensively at second base last season, and you want to maybe try and keep him there and not have to move him around. There was this whole convoluted Jonathan India in left field plan that the Reds had in last spring training because they were trying to figure out where to put guys. You put the outfielder that played college outfield in the outfield. You let Jonathan India, who's finally showing a little bit of defensive acumen, at second base. You leave him at second base. And then that leaves Elly De La Cruz, well, where everybody says that Elly De La Cruz wants to be, which is shortstop.
And that actually was a report from Charlie as well. These were notes that were coming from Charlie. He was, at Great American, talking with Nick Kroll, talking with Terry Francona, all this other stuff. And he said firmly, there wasn't like a, beating around the bush type of thing, like, oh, they want him at shortstop or they love him at shortstop. They said, no, Elly De La Cruz is staying at shortstop. Pretty plain black and white English when it came to that report, which is interesting because I thought at least there was a chance he would move to third base with the way that the infield could change around. But with this news with Matt McLain, I kind of like it because there's two parts of this. I think that he's showing his leadership, the ability to just be like, whatever the team needs, I will do that. But there's definitely some self-preservation as well. New manager coming in. He hasn't seen Matt McLain play. I mean, if he goes back and he looks at highlights, but I mean, he was managing in 2023 with Cleveland, so it's not like he was sitting around watching Matt McLain on television. So I think that there is a little bit of, look, I will do what I need to do to get into the game, and that is what Matt McLain is saying with this. And I love either option because I think Noelvi Marte proved that he should not just be handed the keys to third base like we thought he should be. And then the outfield is the land of opportunity that as much as we love TJ Friedel, he has not shown the ability to stay healthy for an entire year. So if the Reds can get themselves, and quite frankly, Matt McLain hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy either, so there's that. But if you could get a talented dude like Matt McLain into a spot that he is at least competent, I'm just saying be competent in the outfield, then we're cooking with gas because that makes it so that you only really need to go get one big bat this offseason. And I think we kind of know how this Reds team likes to operate. If they make a big move in the offseason, it is one big move, and then the rest of the moves are kind of smaller moves. So Matt McLain is at least opening the door for them to stay in their wheelhouse a little bit here.
There are so many dominoes that result from this, Jeff. It allows you, if you move Matt McLain to the outfield, it allows you to do different things with Spencer Steer. Spencer Steer can become that super utility that we talked about. He'll still get some outfield time, but time at first base, time, basically it's everywhere, but I don't know. I'd even play him at shortstop for a day. I mean, I'm not saying it does a lot. It does a lot for Spencer Steer. You're right. They go get that big outfield bat. The outfield is suddenly very much improved. Let's talk for just a second about them talking about Elly the way they talked about Elly on Tuesday. This could just have simply been a great big hug for Elly De La Cruz. Not so much. I don't think Elly's making any demands. I don't think that anybody is worried about Elly being upset, but also Elly is a smart baseball guy. He can look around the room too and figure out what optimal defensive alignments might look like. And it's no accident that guys like John Sadak were saying, Elly really wants to be a shortstop. He says he wants to be a shortstop. There's no mystery there. So I think this could have just been Nick Kroll and Terry just kind of giving Elly a hug and being like, "You're our guy.
I'm going nowhere.
You're our shortstop. We're just put it out there right now. Our shortstop, our face of the franchise right now is you. You're our shortstop. You're Elly De La Cruz. Go get it done." And it's nothing more beyond that. I think that this is gives the Reds the ability to kind of go out and do that one big move, Jeff, and really start to move puzzle pieces, start to move the players on the chessboard there, and begin to get a formulation of what this team can look like moving forward.
Well, and still, with the passing of Pete in our minds and things like that, I mean, that's what Pete did whenever he played is like, you need me to move somewhere, I'll move somewhere. He played so many different positions and he was an all-star at all of them. And I think Matt McLain at least has the kind of talent to be an argument for an all-star at some different positions. We'll have to see exactly how he fields them. But on the Elly side of this, I find it intriguing because it was well reported, and Nick Kroll even confirmed it, that Marty Brennaman was a big part of hiring Terry Francona. He was kind of the guy that helped set up the initial meeting and all this other stuff. He put the bug in Terry's ear, and Terry got to thinking about it and really decided he wanted it. Marty's also gone on record and saying that he doesn't think that Elly is a very good shortstop because of the lapses and the routine plays that he misses and things like this. I think this is also Terry saying, I know how to fix this. I know how to get everything rolling with him on the most boring of plays where you're just supposed to get down on a very fundamental level, make a play on an easy grounder and throw to first, as well as the plays that you range into mid-center field and do a sliding basket catch over your shoulder, like highlight reel stuff. Like, he's like, we're going to make this easy for Elly, and we're not going to make him worry about, am I going to be a third baseman? Am I going to be a right fielder? Am I going to be a center fielder? No, you're a shortstop.
It'll be interesting to see if Elly gets a little defensive coaching, gets coached up defensively. One of the things Terry Francona said was that, baseball should be played the right way, right? He talked about playing the game the right way. And if you watch Elly De La Cruz play shortstop, there's a lot of ole going on and fielding the balls to the side and no sound fundamentals like you just described, getting down on the ball and making a good throw. I'll be interested to see how he looks fielding a ground ball at shortstop when we get back into camp here in February and March. I bet you he's down on the ball. I bet you the way he fields the ball changes.
This news, there's so much that I'm already excited about spring training, but this news makes me even more excited. Are we going to see Matt McLain in center? And that'll be something to watch in the Arizona Fall League, because Matt McLain is going to be playing in the Arizona Fall League. Does he get time in center field? Does he get time at third base? And
I know we're running out of time in this segment, but just the Arizona Fall League roster is kind of an enigma this time around, because CES is on this roster. Connor Phillips is pitching in this league. Matt McLain's going to be playing.
There's major league experience.
There's a lot of major league experience on the Red Arizona Fall League roster. And some of these other kids that were just excited to be named to the Arizona Fall League for the other teams have to kind of look at that and be like, what is this crap? What is happening right now?
Like, you play in the majors. What are you doing here? Like, yeah, that old SNL skit, the Californians. What are you doing here? Anyway, I just had to get that in there. But yeah, no, I'm very excited for that, and I'm very excited for spring training, because so much is going to be happening between now and then. But there was a little bit of a bummer of a headline that came out of all of this news dump that happened on Tuesday, and it's really hitting home the fact that the Reds need to get some pitching this offseason. We'll tell you why coming up next. Playoff baseball, NFL and college football, basketball coming. Oh my! The best way to take advantage of all of that is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new users can get $200 guaranteed with their first $5 bet. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and get that promo. Plus, there's all kinds of great things you can put that $5 on. Looking at the playoffs, you've got all kind of great World Series odds. The playoff games right now in the NLDS have been absolutely phenomenal. The ALDS has been absolutely phenomenal. Dodgers and Padres fans, anyway, are really not liking each other. There's a lot to have fun with over at FanDuel. Plus, NFL action, prop bets galore. Check it all out. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And again, you'll get $200 after your first $5 bet guaranteed. FanDuel.com, they're America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're looking for the best way to get down to the ballpark, get down to the stadium, get down to the arena, it's with Game Time. Game Time's got last-minute deals at the lowest price, guaranteed. Steve and I always use Game Time whenever we're going down to Reds games, but quite frankly, I love using it for Bengals games, for Cyclones games, for Bearcats games, because the closer you get to the beginning of the game, the better deals you find. And they make it so easy to find your seats. If you've never been to the stadium before, you can get a feel for exactly what your view is going to look like, because they have the view from your seat. Download the Game Time app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll save an extra $20 off your first order. So you're getting amazing deals already, and you're going to save $20 on top of that with the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Download the Game Time app today and create an account, because what time is it? It's game time. You need to subscribe to the Locked On Reds podcast because we're going to bring you 30 minutes at least of Reds talk every single day, every single month, every single week, all year long. Flip those two. Anyway, whatever. We're talking Reds every single day here on the Locked On Reds podcast. And we mentioned the news about Matt McLain looking to move, would be open to a move. Elliot De La Cruz not moving. Well, another part of the news that we got on Tuesday was that Julian Aguilar underwent Tommy John surgery. He left his last start of the season was September 19th against the Braves. He left after the fourth inning, he only threw 75 pitches. He got hit around in that start a lot. Gave up 7 runs. His ERA ballooned over 6 at that point. But he left the start early, and it was like, don't love that. Hopefully he's okay. He will now not pitch in 2025. Add him to the list of Brandon Williamson, who will not pitch in 2025. Steve, the Reds' pitching depth is already being tested, and the truck ain't even packed to head to Arizona right now. They need to be on the free agent list. They need to be on the trade wire, figuring out some more pitching depth, some solutions here.
Yeah, I've kind of been in the camp that they needed to go get a guy. They needed to go get a veteran 5th starter. Somebody that, they'll have to spend a little bit of money on, but that can be your number 5 guy heading into the start of the season, but also a guy that it wouldn't hurt your feelings if Chase Petty or Chase Burns came and took their job away from them at some point in time in 2025. And then you just traded them at the All-Star break for a piece that you need to make a run. That's the kind of guy I think the Reds should be looking for. And this news on Aguilar just cements that that's really what needs to happen. Right. Everybody says the answer to the question of they need to go get pitching is you can never have enough pitching. You can never have too much pitching. And we saw that this last season when the Reds ended up having not one single guy from the opening day rotation being available to pitch. So this cements for me that one of the moves that Nick Krall has to make this offseason is going and getting a pitcher. Now, is it a free agent guy? Is it somebody you trade for? Is it a change of scenery guy? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there. I'm inclined to say that if this team is serious about being a playoff team, if this team is serious about making a push, which I think they are, that it's not going to be a reclamation project. It's going to be going and actually getting a guy that is being brought in specifically to be a number 5 starter in the Reds rotation in 2025.
So is it Sonny Gray?
I don't think it's Sonny Gray for a couple reasons. Number one, that's not your number 5 starter. That's not number 5 starter money. That's not. And to get him, you're going to have to trade prospect capital. That's definitely not going to equate to him being a guy that you're willing to pull out of the rotation sometime around June if one of those young guys is ready to come up. So that's too big. That's too big a swing, I think. Money and prospect capital wise. If you're going to trade that kind of prospect capital, then go get a home run hitting outfielder to add to the outfielder that you're going to sign and really overhaul the outfield and have your 4 outfielders be 2 Mr. Outside hires, TJ Friedl and Matt McLain. Now that's an outfield. And then Jake Fraley as your 5th guy. That's the move there. Sonny Gray's too big a swing, I think.
No, I would agree with that. I think that, I really want to set the stage for what we expect the Reds to be looking for. We'll look at some specific examples as we get into the offseason. I mean, the Reds aren't even going to be able to make a move until the World Series is over, so still plenty of time to really talk about that. But when it came to Julian Aguilar, and I know that there's some folks like, really, Julian Aguilar? You're really getting that bent out of shape over him? But it's what you said. It's the fact that the Reds used so many pitchers, and to know that you had some guys that had major league experience that were going to be part of the depth of the team next year, that was comforting. But this is now another guy that's not going to be on that list. Look, they're not going to have a guy like Julian Aguilar in the opening day rotation. If they did, that'd be a failure. But he would be in Louisville. He would be the 7th or 8th guy on the depth chart that if you did have a couple of injuries, you could call him up and you'd feel all right about giving him 4 to 5 innings for a start. But now they don't have that guy. And think of all the guys that they lost that we thought about last season. Lyon Richardson, Connor Phillips really had a tough year, has to kind of prove himself to get back onto that depth chart. Lyon Richardson was moved to the bullpen in AAA. And you're not going to move a guy to the bullpen in AAA only to bring him back up to be in the starting rotation in the majors. That just doesn't compute. So there's things like that. Carson Spires, I think we know he's not a starting pitcher.
No,
he's a relief pitcher.
Yeah, that question got answered. And, where does Graham Ashcraft fit into this too?
Right.
If Graham Ashcraft can be early days Graham Ashcraft, then maybe he's in the conversation for a fifth starter. I really suspect, given what we hear coming from people around the team and just the eye test, I really think he's in the bullpen to start 2025. But, I hope he proves us wrong, but that's why I'm not mentioning him, because I've kind of moved him into the bullpen list already, at least on my side of things.
No, I would agree with that. I think possibly they start the season with him in the rotation, but I'll say this, based on the reports about, Ellie and Matt McLean and other guys, it kind of seems like Terry Francona is willing to come into this, look at the roster and say, all right, you've proven that you get to stay where you're at. And then maybe he's looking at other guys like, maybe we rethink what your role is on this team and things like that. And that is why we wanted an outside hire. That is why we wanted somebody with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective coming into this team and kind of playing with some things. And I feel like Terry Francona has no qualms whatsoever about doing that. So we could see Graham Ashcraft maybe even starting the year in the bullpen instead of the rotation. With that being said, though, you still definitely got to make some moves. We will talk about what guys could be available on the free agent market a little bit later on this week, and who for my money I'd be interested in going after. But we'll also recap and kind of look back at some of the guys that we did see this year and who will be on the depth chart next season. But I want to jump back into some thoughts about Terry Francona, because he had a great quote. He was asked, "What more do you have to prove?" And I absolutely loved his answer.
This episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, there's still time to get some summer travel in before it all comes to an end, and you can do that with Booking.com. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about baseball and football rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. Booking.com has you covered. It will help you find the perfect stay, even in a rival's city. You can go to, New York and check out the New York Football Giants against the Cincinnati Bengals. Baseball season has come to an end in the Queen City, but there are lots of places you can go visit, from hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts. Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your late summer travel as baseball playoffs roll along. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com. You can use the website, or you can download the Booking.com app.
You can get subscribed to the podcast on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. If you can't watch us, we're on literally every audio podcast out there, so go check us out. All right, Steve, we talked a lot yesterday about
we're on every audio podcast platform. We're not on every audio podcast out there, although we do talk enough
English
to do that.
My third language. Yeah.
Well, Alabama Huntsville West. It's not a real school.
Also went to Kentucky. But yeah, when it came to all the different quotes and stuff, we couldn't get to every single one. We're going to spread them out. There's a lot of great stuff that he had to say. But one of my favorite quotes, and outside of the, having fun is playing the game right and going out there and kicking somebody's ass, he also had this to say, because he was asked about what left does he have to prove at this point. He's won 2 World Series with Boston. He was close with Cleveland. He's almost won 2,000 games as a manager. He's a Hall of Famer as is. But I loved his response to this.
I don't think it matters what you've done in the past. In our game, you earn your stripes every day. That's how I've always felt. I hate the saying, "I've arrived." We're all still arriving. And continue. And the day you stop, people are going to pass you right by.
Can I get a motivational poster with that on it? Like, I think I might just go make. I think you could do that like online or something to make that. But that in and of itself is brilliant. because he's walking into a situation where the Reds haven't proven anything. In fact, they've proven the opposite of success for most of the last 35 years. And he has got some work to do if he's going to be remembered by Reds fans as a legend. Because right now, we're like, dude, we are so happy to get him. But he's got to prove it out on the field, and he understands that.
Yeah, and it's just more of that change in attitude, right? It's more of that change in philosophy, that change of attitude, that breath of fresh air, that infusion of new old energy, whatever you want to call that, but that infusion of different energy. These are all the things that are gonna to get the 2025 season off to a good footing and a good start. Terry's saying all the right things. There really were, and obviously, you know, he had prepared remarks, but I think a lot of that presser was just Terry talking. I watched him on the Dan Patrick show
That was
yesterday as well. And it was a great interview. Terry's saying all the right things and answering the questions the correct way. So I'm excited, Jeff. Every time he answers a question, I get a little bit more excited right now for things to get rolling. You know, people think we drink the Kool-Aid too much sometimes around here, but I'm by no means saying that, all right, the Reds are done. They got their guy. Let's go. But I think they got their guy. Let's go. They're not done. They're not done, but they got their guy. Let's go. So they're going to go get him the pieces that he needs, and they're going to continue to improve this team. And that being said, more from our guy, Charlie Goldsmith, the coaching staff. While we don't have any hires yet, we do know who's not coming back. Did you know the Reds had 3 hitting coaches? I think a lot of people forgot that. I kind of remembered it.
Yeah.
Right. So Joe McKeithen is gone. I remembered Terry Bradshaw kinda because Terry Bradshaw, right?
Name.
Because the name. And then of course Tim Lamont, who I had no clue worked for this team. So
AI generated name right there.
So all 3 of those guys are unemployed. They all have been let go. We do know Derek Johnson's sticking around on the pitching side of things. Terry Francona hasn't made any hires yet, but a rethinking of the hitting philosophy was clearly something that needed to happen. And this was the first thing you had to do. You had to get rid of the guys that were here all along and start to look to bring in replacement coaches. Another thing we learned from our good buddy, Charlie, Jeff, is that the budget's not set yet, but it will be set by the end of the month. The Reds will have their operating budget for 2025 nailed down before the end of the World Series. They're going to get that done here in October. So I'm sure there's loose planning strategies going on with Francona and what he wants, and the front office is starting to talk about it. And by the end of the World Series, they're going to have a plan formulated. They'll have a budget. They know what they can spend, and then they can swing it all into action and go get dudes. And, you know, and the coaching staff, the budget is part of that too. They're not going to make, I don't think, any real hiring announcements until after the World Series. I don't think. Maybe we'll learn 1 or 2, but maybe some of the guys that Terry wants are actually still coaching right now. So it'll be a process.
Yeah, and I think too, like, there's really no other big news that we're going to hear transactionally for the Reds, at least for the next couple of weeks or so. The only thing that I can think of is that there's a clarification on what Freddie Benavides is about to do, because I believe he is still under contract for next season.
I think so, and JR House as well. So those are a couple guys we haven't heard. I mean, obviously they still have their jobs, and guys got fired today. So, but I imagine that for guys that may be staying around, Francona's got to sit down with them and talk about what their role has been, what he envisions for them. You know, they may not want to stay. Freddie, you know, he got a taste of that manager job. You know, he may not want to stick around here. He may want to try to move on to a different organization. We don't know. So there will be more news along those lines, I think, about in-house internal moves, maybe guys moving around in the minor leagues as far as levels they're going to be managing at, guys that are in the minor leagues, maybe possibly coming up to fill some role. But the hires, the outside hires, I think we won't learn about till World Series.
I've got to believe that Terry Francona wants to bring in his own bench coach, though.
I would think so.
I think Freddie Benavides, if he stays, that would be a different role for him, and I'm not sure what that would be, but I want to say, I mean, look, I'm not inside the mind of Terry Francona. We don't have the technology, but I think that that's something that most new managers want to do whenever they join a new ball club. So I could see that happening. And from the hitting coach side of things, even outside of just performance wise, Terry Francona would want to bring in the kind of guys that he trusts and that he's worked with before. The fact that he already had a pitching coach here that the organization still feels really strong about, and he's still under contract, he knew he wasn't going to be able to pick that guy. So I'm thinking he's going to want to pick most of the rest of the other coaching staff hires. So I think we'll definitely see a bunch of that. But yeah, I think that the season proved, because for the most part, this team was horribly inconsistent at the plate. I mean, there'd be games where they score 10, and there'd be 3 or 4 games where they score like 1 run a game. And you just didn't really know which team you were going to get. They were a box of chocolates, Steve. We don't need a box of chocolates in 2025.
Yeah, there was a real lack of adjustment when guys struggled, when problems did show themselves. So this was a much needed, necessary move, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes next. We're gonna have all of the news. We're gonna continue to monitor it all. I think that is probably a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. You can go make the Locked On MLB podcast your second listen. Our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, you can call him Sully, is over there. He's got you covered for all of the postseason action. He's been covering baseball all season long on the national level for the Locked On Podcast Network. We've got a link for his show down in the description of ours. You don't even got to search for it. Jump over there and check it out today. And with that being said, Jeff, get us out of here.
Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. Remember, we will be all over the coaching hires. We'll be all over the rumor mills about free agents and trades and things like that could be happening, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
Hashtag Steve was right about the outfield.
Gosh, it's about time you're right about something.